So this is the new Galaxy Watch 6 from Samsung. With the Watch 6, they have bigger and brighter displays. They also advertise slightly longer battery life, and maybe the biggest thing is here is they brought back the physical rotating bezel, which should come as a huge hit for all you Galaxy Watch fans out there. So in this video, we're going to go over everything new with the new Galaxy Watch 6, including all the new hardware features as well as all the new software features, with, of course, a big emphasis on the sports and fitness side of things since that's the focus of this channel. And I'll be giving a lot of real-world examples of how it actually performs. So it is kind of interesting to see what Samsung did between the Watch 5 and the Watch 6. So last year with the Watch 5, they offered the standard Watch 5 as well as the Watch 5 Pro, both of which came with the touch-sensitive bezel. And then this year with the Watch 6, they're offering the Watch 6 Classic with the physical rotating bezel, and then a standard Watch 6 with the touch-sensitive bezel, but they aren't offering a Watch 6 Pro. But instead, they're just keeping the Watch 5 Pro around for those of you out there who want longer battery life. Kind of interesting decisions, no doubt, but at least now I guess there's an option for everyone. So with that, what's actually new with the Watch 6? So first off, the big standout is the Watch 6 Classic with the physical rotating bezel, and it's just as satisfying to use as before with the Watch 4 Classic. And what's even nicer about the bezel coming back is that it's now 30% thinner. It makes a big difference in my opinion and makes the entire watch look super clean. Before on the Watch 4 Classic, the bezel was kind of out there, but now you can barely tell that it's there, and it does make the Watch 6 look even better than before. And personally, I am a huge fan of the design of the Galaxy watches, and I think it's definitely the best looking one yet. The new Watch 6 Classics also get a slight bump in case size where there's now a 43mm version as well as a 47mm version versus the Watch 4 Classic, which had a 42mm version and a 46mm version, but they still are made out of stainless steel. But along with the larger case sizes, all of the new Watch 6s, both classic and non-classic versions, have displays that are now 20% larger than before, with the smaller Watch 6s getting a 1.3-inch display with 432 by 432 pixels, and the larger versions getting a quite massive 1.5-inch display with a whopping 480 by 480 pixels. The non-classic Watch 6s actually have the same case size as the previous generation Watch 5, but even though they did retain the same case size, they still got the increased display size of the Watch 6 Classic, which is nice. Another new thing with these new larger Super AMOLED displays is that they're also twice as bright this year, where they're now rated at 2000 nits versus 1000 nits before, and it really does make a big difference, especially in direct sunlight. And then just like last year's Watch 5s, all of them are protected with a sapphire lens for increased scratch resistance, and then all of them are rated to 5 ATM water resistance as well as IP68. And then on the battery life end of things, they advertise slightly longer battery life than before, with up to 30 hours if you're using the always-on display, and then up to 40 hours if you turn the always-on display off. Battery life will, of course, kind of depend on how you're using it. So for me, I'm getting a little bit over a day out of mine, and I am using the always-on display mode. I'm recording about an hour-long outdoor activity per day, and then I also turned on blood oxygen saturation level tracking, snore detection, as well as skin temperature tracking during sleep. So it isn't necessarily a gigantic leap in battery life by any means, like double the battery life, but I think one thing that could factor in is that the display does get twice as bright, so that could be a factor in the equation. Oh, and then one more thing is that it does have a fast charging feature where they can charge from empty to full in about an hour, which I found to hold very true. And then one more thing with the Watch 6 Classic is that they come with this rather interesting band where it's a silicone type material on the side that touches your skin, and then a leatherish looking material on the outside. So it's basically this kind of hybrid band which should hold up for sports with silicone on the underside, but then it has a classier look, I guess you could say, on the outside. And then there's also this new quick release band system on all the Watch 6s with this little button which just quickly releases them from the case, and these are backwards compatible, by the way. And then on the operating system side of things, all the Watch 6s run Wear OS 4, and this isn't necessarily a complete overhaul or anything like that with Wear OS, and navigating and using the Watch 6 is not much different than the previous generation, but it's all very familiar and easy to use, with apps being accessible with a quick swipe from the bottom, quick settings from the top, and tiles if you swipe left or right from the watch face. And of course with the physical rotating bezel on the classic version or the touch sensitive bezel on the non-classic version. But there are also some other new things with Wear OS 4, like you're now able to switch phones without necessarily having to completely reset your watch, which you had to do before. Wear OS 4 also comes with a new backup and restore feature, but interestingly, Samsung already had that feature on previous generation Samsung watches. And then Wear OS 4 also is supposed to deliver optimizations for better battery life. Again, we didn't necessarily see double the battery life, but again, there could be other factors into that equation, like the brighter display. And then there's also this Smart Things Find feature where you're able to locate your phone from your watch, even when it's not connected. And how it does this is that it uses GPS to determine your phone's last location. And then on the health side of things, there's now irregular heart rate notifications, but this feature is only available if you have a Samsung Galaxy phone. And this is going to be the same as the ECG feature, as well as the blood pressure feature. So for me, with the Google Pixel, I actually can't access these features. So this again is a pretty big bummer for those of us out there with non-Galaxy phones. But one thing that is available though for everyone are new sleep insights, where you get a sleep score along with all your sleep stats like the total time slept, the time you went to bed as well as woke up, as well as sleep stages. And in terms of tracking the time I went to bed and woke up, it seems to do a pretty good job, and the sleep score also does seem to reflect how I actually felt the next morning. And the new Watch 6 also comes with Samsung's body composition feature, which uses the same sort of technology as a body fat scale to estimate your skeletal muscle, fat mass, body water, and body fat percentage. And it's producing numbers that are in the ballpark of some of the body composition scales that I've been using. It's not quite as close to my actual body fat percentage, which is usually around 12 to 13%, but I will have to say that at least the measurement is staying very consistent from measurement to measurement. And then on the sports and fitness side of things, there's not necessarily huge updates this year, but they now have added a new track running profile, as well as the ability to create custom workouts. And then they also have new customizable heart rate zones. There is still quite a big list of workout profiles though to choose from, where there's all the common stuff like running and cycling, both outdoors and indoors. There's pool swimming as well as open water swimming. There's plenty of gym profiles to choose from. There's outdoor recreation profiles like skiing, and even stuff like bowling and hang gliding. And in regards to GPS performance, as in how well it does in tracking outdoor activities, one problem I've historically had with Samsung watches is GPS acquisition, as in how long it takes to get a GPS signal when I first go to start a workout. With previous Samsung watches, there's been times that I've been out there for like 5 to 10 minutes just waiting for a GPS signal so I can actually start to run. But I am super happy to report that that's completely solved with the Watch 6. It is super fast to get a GPS signal when I first go to start a workout. And I've actually been recently traveling around Europe, where I'm not joking, but pretty much every new workout has been in a new country, and it's able to get a GPS fix within like 5 to 10 seconds. It is super fast, so super kudos to them for that. But in regards to the actual precision though, when it comes to tracking outdoor activities, I'd say it's in the decent department for the most part. When it comes to total distances, you can see from all these tests that it's generally very close to the other devices that I'm using as references. Pretty good stuff overall. And in terms of the finer detail of the actual GPS tracks, it's in the okay department, but not necessarily exceptional. There are no big misses where it lost a GPS signal or anything like that. So you can see for the most part, it's doing a pretty good job. But you can also see that on corners and curves, this is where it misses these a little bit, where it oftentimes overshoots or undercuts a corner, especially when they're tighter. So you can see on the straight line sections, it does a very good job, but on most corners, you'll see it kind of overshoot and then eventually get back on track. And my theory here is that it has something to do with the sampling rate in regards to how often it's taking a GPS signal. And I actually do have the high location accuracy setting enabled. So with stuff like road biking, you may see this overshooting a bit more since you're doing a higher speed activity. And this may also factor into the new track running profile as well, which I guess let's go ahead and talk about that now. So with the new track running profile, this is designed to deliver higher accuracy for track running workouts. And the reason that you may need this sort of feature if you're a runner is that even with the most accurate watches out there with dual band satellite chipsets and all that jazz, consumer grade GPS is really only accurate down to about plus or minus 3 meters or so. And that can make a huge difference on a standard track with a tight perimeter like that, where the distance can literally differ depending on the lane that you're in. So what this track workout profile is designed to do, and this is very similar to companies like Garmin, Apple, as well as Coros, is it kind of learns the track as you're running it. So as it learns the pattern, it's able to deliver higher accuracy than what you can typically get just out of GPS. So for how this works, here's the first time I hopped into this particular track. And what I did is just run 2 times around the track. And as you can see, the total distance being just 800 meters was a little bit off, but still pretty close for the most part. But when it comes to the actual GPS tracks, you can see that it's not necessarily all that accurate these first 2 times around. It's kind of choppy and it's also a little bit offset, and this is basically what you'll see if a watch is just utilizing GPS during a track workout on a tighter perimeter like this. And you can see the same thing here with the Garmin watches that I was using. But then if we take a look at these next 2 times I went around, the tracks are much smoother, not as choppy, and they're right on top of each other like they should be. However, what you will also notice is that they don't fall exactly where I was actually running. It's kind of offset to the actual track, but that's not the same as the Garmin and Coros watches I was using. Those actually match the track down to the first lane that I was using. And then if we take a look at the real track workout that I did after those first 2 tests, although the GPS tracks are stacked right on top of each other like they should be, and they do look great, they don't line up though with the actual track on the satellite map. And again, I think this may go back to the less frequent GPS sampling rate that we talked about earlier. So while the algorithm that they're using to detect the actual track shape as well as the total distance, those seem to be doing a pretty good job. It does seem to be a little bit offset, and I think that does just have something to do with the GPS sampling rate. Is that a big deal in the whole scheme of things? Probably not, since the total distances did seem to line up pretty well, but it's just something that I noticed that I wanted to point out. And then finally, let's go ahead and talk about heart rate accuracy. So if we take a look at this indoor cycling workout, pretty good for the most part, where it tracked the workout pretty well. It's not quite as smooth as what I see as some other watches, where there's spots where it's a little bit choppy here and there, as well as a few slight blips, but overall, pretty good. Now, taking it outside, you can see that other than this spot right here at the beginning, in the whole scheme of things, it was somewhat close to the external heart rate straps that I was using. It certainly was off in a few places here or there, but this is actually better than what I've seen before out of Galaxy watches. However, then there's this ride. So for the first third of the ride, it was pretty good. It did take a couple minutes to start tracking the increase in heart rate at the beginning, but then it was good to go for quite some time. After that though, it started to get pretty off track. It was able to get back on track on occasion, but it certainly had quite a few issues on the last half of the ride. And then I had this ride as well, and interestingly enough, some similar things going on here, where for the first third of the ride, somewhat usable results, but for the last 2/3 of the ride, well, the results sort of speak for themselves. And then when it comes to running, I'm basically encountering the same sort of issues that I've seen before with Samsung watches, where this is what they call a cadence lock. So what happens with this sort of anomaly is that the heart rate sensor is mistakenly locking onto your cadence with the impact of each footstep. So you can see here that when I stopped to tie my laces, it was actually able to get a fix on my heart rate, but as soon as I started running again, that number that it's reporting actually is extremely close to my cadence. It's just that coincidentally on this portion of the run, my heart rate actually matches my cadence. And at the end here, we can see that my heart rate goes above my cadence, but the Watch 6 is still reporting that same number. And then the same thing goes for this track workout, where while it looks like it's tracking the up and down trends of my heart rate, it's more that it's tracking the up and down trends of my cadence. Now, one thing I do want to mention is that the weight of a watch can play a factor in terms of heart rate accuracy, and I've seen this historically on all the watches that I've tested over the last 6 years. And I didn't have a chance to test the standard non-classic Watch 6, but that is lighter than the classic Watch 6. But my buddy DC Rainmaker, he actually did test the standard Watch 6, so I'd encourage you to go ahead and check out his review once you're done over here. But of course, the one thing that could make this all better is if the native Samsung workout app could pair with an external heart rate strap, but I can't seem to find that functionality yet again. So with all that, what are my final thoughts on the Watch 6? Well, again, I think the design is awesome. I've been a really big fan of the look and feel of Samsung watches over years and years, and the Watch 6 Classic is really the best yet, with an even larger display, which is also much brighter. And there's also that super satisfying rotating bezel, and the fact that the bezel is thinner, which makes for a quite simply incredible looking watch. But realistically, it's kind of hard for me not to just think of this as a blend between a Watch 5 and a Watch 4 with a larger display and slightly longer battery life. GPS performance definitely seems a lot better, especially in the GPS acquisition department. The finer detail of the GPS tracks seems to be about the same, where it's acceptable and not necessarily exceptional, but unfortunately heart rate performance seems to be about the same. Anyhow, those are my thoughts on the new Galaxy Watch 6, but I definitely want to hear from you as well. So if you're already a Samsung Galaxy Watch 4 or 5 owner, are you going to upgrade? And what do you think about the Watch 6? Let us all know down in the comments section down below. And on your way down there, if you found the information in this video useful, do me a favor and hit that like button, and also subscribe to the channel for plenty more sports tech videos just like this that are coming soon. Thanks so much for watching, and we will see you in the next video.